Welcome to the Midwest. Mouth breathing. Is it bad for you? Yeah, it is. We're going to talk a little bit more about it today. Welcome to the Midwest. My name is Jesse, and today we're talking about mouth breathing. Why is this such a bad thing for you? It actually is bad if you are constantly mouth breathing. The more you can breathe through the nose, the better. And we can't really talk about why it's bad for you to be a mouth breather without talking about some of the benefits of nasal breathing as well. So we're going to cover a little bit about that today. So I've got a lot of information for you, so stick with me this whole video. So the first reason why mouth breathing is bad is because if you are a mouth breather, you are forfeiting all the benefits of nasal breathing. So whenever you're using your nose to breathe, you are filtering, humidifying, and heating the air so that it is perfectly ready for your alveoli to open up and to accept that breath, for the gas exchange to occur, and for there to be no irritation, no inflammation, no problems at all with the air. So when it comes to air purification, if you're a mouth breather, you're just avoiding that altogether. The second reason why mouth breathing is bad for you has to do with your autonomic nervous system. Now, this is all covered in the book that I'm coming out with. If it's coming out on September 29th, 2020. If it's after that date when you're watching this, take a look in the description bar below. I explain a lot this all in much more detail, but let's talk about it just for now. When it comes to the autonomic nervous system, if you are a mouth breather, mouth breathing leads to chest breathing, okay? So nasal breathing, whenever you breathe in, of course, right, if you just take a nasal breath, a deep breath with your nostrils, you're gonna feel more resistance, and that resistance is a trigger for your diaphragm to fire appropriately. So the more you are engaging in nasal breathing, the better breather you're going to become, just as far as your breath wave and all kinds of things that I explain in the book. I don't have time to go over it all in this video. But overall, if you're a mouth breather, it naturally leads to chest breathing. When we engage in chest breathing, we are sending a signal to our autonomic nervous system to go into a state of fight or flight. Now, fight or flight is a very useful state to be in if you are literally fighting or fleeing, for your life, of course, right? Or, whenever you're competing, whenever you're exercising, you're naturally going to go into that state eventually. So there is a time and place for it. But that time and place is generally short, and the vast majority of your day should not be in the fight or flight state. This is because when you're in a fight or flight state, you are in a stressed state. So all of your stress hormones are high. Your circulation changes due to changes in your autonomic nervous system. The state actually tells the circulation where to go, and it's not going to be good for recovering, for healing, for digesting, and for relaxing. It's terrible for sleep as well. So if you are mouth breathing, you are naturally putting yourself into a fight or flight state. Now you might say, Jesse, I'm a mouth breather, proud mouth breather here, and I don't feel like I'm in a state of fight or flight all the time. Now here's the I guess the awful truth. People who are in a state of fight or flight all the time don't often realize that they are in a state of fight or flight all the time, because that's your natural state. You're just there all the time. You're constantly in a state of stress. And most of the time, whenever I work with people who are breathing for stress, whenever they get out of that state, finally, and it can take some time and some practice, when they finally wake up one morning and they actually had a decent night's sleep and they're waking up and they're not in that state of constant stress, that's when you realize, oh, I guess I was constantly being stressed all the time. Because when you're constantly in a certain state, yes, you might be even more elevated. Maybe you caffeinate, maybe you actually get scared, because there's some kind of a physical threat coming at your way. But you're constantly at a low level of stress, or even a major level of stress, and you don't even realize it because you don't know any different. You've just been there all along. So when it comes to mouth breathing, that second reason is a really big one. That's the autonomic nervous system. Now, the third one is a little bit more complex, and it's one that we're going to talk about just a little bit on this video, but it has to do with the carbon dioxide levels in your blood and oxygen levels in your blood. Now, we know that we need oxygen to survive. We all understand that. But did you also know that you need carbon dioxide in your blood for survival as well? Carbon dioxide and oxygen, they're constantly, you're exchanging them as you're breathing. That's just part of the process of cellular respiration. But whenever you breathe through the mouth, you are exhaling more carbon dioxide than is healthy. So to exhale large amounts of carbon dioxide, that can result in hypocapnia, which is basically constantly low levels of carbon dioxide, which makes it very difficult for you to use and absorb oxygen in your tissues. So isn't that crazy? Okay, so I feel like I'm breathing through the mouth. Well, I should be able to absorb an enormous amount of oxygen because, hey, think of all the oxygen that is actually passing into my body. But the reality is you need carbon dioxide in order to actually let that be diffused into your organs, into the rest of your body. And this is one of the reasons why mouth breathing has been associated with lower IQ, because when you're in a state of hypocapnia, it's been shown that you have less and less circulation in your brain. So if you are finding yourself constantly stressed, if you're finding yourself constantly kind of in a fog and you're a mouth breather, this may be what the problem is. You may be constantly walking through in a stress state, in a foggy stress state, and it's because you are low in carbon dioxide, which makes it impossible to absorb that oxygen that you need, which makes it harder for the circulation to get to those places in your brain. It causes vasoconstriction as opposed to vasodilation if you have healthy levels of carbon dioxide in your blood. Now, this leads to my next reason for why mouth breathing is bad for you. So if you constantly have low levels of carbon dioxide in your blood, guess what happens? You get used to it, okay? And you cannot tolerate high levels later on of carbon dioxide. Now, for those of you who don't know, carbon dioxide is the chemical in your blood that makes you feel the need to breathe. So whenever you have your levels of carbon dioxide are elevating, right? Whenever you have more elevated levels of carbon dioxide, you feel the need to breathe. So here's what happens. If you constantly rid yourself of carbon dioxide, if you're constantly breathing out more carbon dioxide than is healthy, your tolerance diminishes. So what does that mean? The end result of that is that you might be an amazing athlete, but you get winded at the top of the stairs. One of the most common things when I work with athletes, and if you're an athlete, hey, check me out, I can work with you as well. One of the first things I do when I work with an athlete or someone who is experiencing just overall high levels of stress is I check their CO2 tolerance. What we normally see is that even really great athletes sometimes have very low tolerance for CO2. And whenever we boost that tolerance for CO2, we get endurance. We get people who are not only great athletes to begin with, we get great athletes who don't get gassed as soon and who make better decisions under stress. Because whenever you're stressed, one of the ways that we become very stressed, think about it. Whenever you're out of breath, you're just really panting and man, I just can't keep up with the demands of my breath. Well, isn't that a stressed state, right? So you no longer have that to deal with, or at least we push it off till later. So whenever I work with athletes, when I work with people who are really in high stress states on a regular basis, who are easily set off by stress really affects them quickly. It's not always the case, but oftentimes it's that CO2 tolerance is very low. And then all we need to do is there's certain exercises that you can do to boost that CO2 tolerance and make it so that, great, awesome, we don't have this problem anymore. However, one of the biggest contributors is mouth breathing. Even with athletes, if you think about it, a lot of athletes don't realize just how important it is to breathe through the nose. So that is, I'll say that's my last big reason why you should not be a mouth breather. Those are enough reasons right there to say, okay, maybe I should start breathing through my nose. Now, how can I start doing that if I'm addicted to breathing through the mouth? Well, there's a few things. First of all, most people breathe who have a mouth breathing problem. Even if you don't have a mouth breathing problem in the daytime, a lot of people have a mouth breathing problem at night. So one of the things that a lot of people do is they tape their mouth shut when they go to sleep. Now that sounds terrifying, and of course, if you're hirsute like I am on the face, it's just not that great of an idea. However, there are different things you can do. Instead of just like duct taping your whole face, right? You can just put a little piece of tape here just as a reminder, you know, even whenever you're half asleep, as a reminder, okay, I'm not breathing through my mouth. Or there's some people who will put a pillow, maybe you have a pillow that you can just kind of rest on your chest, and you can just prop your chin up so that you remind yourself, I'm not going to breathe through the mouth tonight. What studies show, and what I've seen in myself, because I had this problem to some degree, and other people that I train, I see this, the more you breathe through the nose, the better your nasal breathing will become. Because a lot of people breathe through the mouth simply because they don't feel like they're able to keep up with their breathing demands through the nose. Well, again, you're probably contributing to those breathing demands. Again, going back to the thing I said about CO2. But the other thing is, if you can just dedicate certain times of the day, or even especially whenever you're in low activity, maybe start there, just breathing through the nose, and then maybe working your way to, okay, I'm walking down the hallway now. Okay, maybe my first lap around the track, I can just breathe through the nose. You just kind of slowly be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. And of course, work with a breath worker or a breath coach if you can find one. I do online training. I do in-person training as well. So I can help you with that as well. But the thing is, what you want to try to do is look at it as, you know, I didn't get this way overnight. I'm not going to get over it overnight either. So just be patient with yourself and have a good sense of humor. Okay, so if you're a mouth breather, close that mouth. Actually, this month on my Patreon, I uploaded one for CO2 training. So if you join the Patreon club, you have access to the full library of, for every month I add about 3 breathing sessions. So some of them for just going deep and getting into it. Some of them are for relaxation, going to sleep, guided meditations, all those things. Super cheap, just check it out below. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. And don't forget to go out there and be kind to people.